Hello, I'm Jeff Paur, senior writer with the RealTime Fantasy Sports, and welcome to the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show. It is time for This Week in the TFC. We do this every week. We do a recap of the past week. We look ahead as well, talk all things TFC. We're very excited this week to break down the drafts that took place this past Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. That was the draft we focused on for this week, and it was a good one. And I am happy to be joined by my son, Henry Paur, for the draft recap for this week. Henry, thanks so much for coming on and joining me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
Yeah, Henry, this was a good draft this week in the TFC. A lot of interesting picks, a lot of interesting builds as well. So let's bring it up without further ado and get into it and let people look at the draft. You can see it here on the draft board. One of the first things that kind of stands out to me, Henry, was running backs. 3 of the first 4 picks were running backs. That's not always the case. I mean, a lot of these leagues are very receiver heavy, but I'm okay doing that. Robinson went second, Hall fourth. You have any problem taking either of those guys in those spots?
No, because I think they are all high upside players. I mean, they're great running backs. We know what they did last year. I think they can have great seasons this year too.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm okay with that. If you want to go running back early, one of those elite guys, one of those top 3 guys, I'm okay taking them. I'd be fine going 1, 2, 3 with those guys. Totally okay with me. I love Lamb. I think has a super high floor. He's going to get a ton of work in that offense, but I'm okay with those running backs. I'm okay with doing that. But Henry, definitely some interesting builds here. We can look at some of these teams. A couple that I wanted to point out went really tight end heavy. So the first team took 3 tight ends in the first 9 rounds: Kittle, Njoku, and Ferguson. What do you think about going that heavy on the tight end spot?
Now, I think that might be a little too heavy for most drafts, but I mean, if he thinks these are all going to be 100 plus catch guys or around that area and they're going to be number one weapons in our offense, you can use one as a flex and they can be just as good as a wide receiver. I mean, it is a lot, 3 tight ends in the first time, but if you have that much faith in these players, that go with it.
So the team on the end, the other side, did something similar. They took 2 tight ends in the first 6 rounds, Laporta and Andrews. So a similar strategy. I kind of agree with you. If you think these guys are going to get that, 90 catches, they're going to end up being similar to wide receiver number 2. So I'm okay with doing that. It's an interesting strategy. I'm anxious to see how it plays out. In past years, I think it made even more sense because you're kind of playing defense. You're taking one of these really good tight ends away from another roster, and the position wasn't quite as deep in recent years. But I actually think tight end's deeper this year. I'm good with getting some of these guys later. So I don't know. I don't know if I can do that personally. Would you ever approach a draft and take that many tight ends that early?
I don't know if I can do that. I mean, it seems like it's really risky because you don't know what the tight ends are going to do. Like an offense could have just gotten the wide receiver, and then that wide receiver takes a ton of reps, and then that tight end falls off a little. It's a really different area. I don't think I can do it.
Exactly. One stack that I absolutely loved, and he was the first QB off the board, was Josh Allen in round 4. So that was the first quarterback. But then he backed that up to Dalton Kincaid. So I love Kincaid, and I just love that stack. I think that's a good strategy if you want to get the top receiver for that top quarterback. I think the team 4 Brees's Pieces. I like that name as well. Did a good job there with that stack. You like that?
I do like that. I think the great combo. Allen was number 1 fantasy QB last year, I'm pretty sure, and then he just backed it up with probably his number 1 weapon this season.
Exactly. And you talked about this stack before we came on here, and I agree with you. I thought it was kind of interesting. But team 2, what did they do there that kind of stood out to you?
I love what they did at the running back position. At the running back 2, they already had Bijan, then they went Connor, and then they backed it up with the next pick, picking Trey Benson. So now he's got both the Arizona running backs. So one of them is probably going to have the handle on the backfield by around week 8, I would assume. And you're going to know for sure that you're going to have one really solid RB2. And maybe if Trey Benson takes over, there's a chance he could be an RB1 because how explosive these rookie running backs usually are. Because we know how rookie running backs usually do when they come into the league. One usually finishes, around top 10 fantasy-wise. Maybe he's that guy.
So one team that kind of waited on the running back position, most everybody attacked it fairly early, but one team did not, and that was team 10 there. They ended up taking their first running back in round 6, and that's Zach Moss. And then they got Blake Corum, Javonte Williams, Ty Chandler, Elijah Mitchell. They're just hoping one of those guys hits. I don't know if I love the options he took. I think I kind of like Williams, and I probably like Moss more than most, but I still think it's kind of risky, the strategy he used there with the running backs he got.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he also then, you would think when you waited up to running back, you would take one of those early QBs. He again waited and took Herbert and Jaden Daniels, which I don't really love as QBs either. He's great wide receivers and Kelsey, so it's great right there. But man, those running backs, they're really risky. One of those could really just, the other back, if they go to the backfield, like Corum has Kyron, Moss has Chase Brown, Javonte has Estime, and Elijah Mitchell's already the backup behind McCaffrey. So you never know. None of these guys could do anything. There's a chance.
I thought it was really interesting that Corum goes ahead of Javonte Williams and Brian Robinson because he's not really guaranteed anything at this point. Kind of interesting. I guess maybe that owner, Cows and Moons, knows something that we don't with those players. It's always interesting to see what happens in the preseason, and we'll talk about that a little later. So maybe some of these position battles will get sorted out. Team 6, Henry, I wanted to point out that owner as well. So he took Mahomes in round 5, and then Burrow in 8. So I can understand maybe the tight end, but I don't know. Using that much draft capital on top quarterbacks, man, it's a scary proposition as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I will say maybe he's worried about, I guess, injury of Mahomes, but maybe he thought he had really good value in getting Burrow in round 8. I don't know, but it seems a little random.
Yeah, I agree, because you're going to spend that much draft capital on Mahomes, and then you use another high pick on another quarterback. Just seems maybe like it could end up being a little bit of a wasted pick on him, unfortunately. But we'll see. Maybe he'll prove us wrong, and he'll use that Mahomes and Burrow and platoon those guys based on matchups and end up scoring more points at the QB spot than anybody else in this league. It's very possible. And talking about QB, I always like to look at the team that took the last QB1, took the last starting quarterback. That was actually the Swim Upstream team. He picked in the 10 spot, and he took Jared Goff in round 12. So he really waited on QB. Actually, a lot of the teams had 2 quarterbacks on their roster already. He gets Goff, backs it up with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. So he went with the Pittsburgh tandem there as the backup. I mean, Goff could end up being, in that top 10 range, but you think his team turned out all right, despite waiting on that QB spot? You still think he could do pretty well there, Henry?
Yeah, he also drafted Gibbs in the first round, and the Lions dumped the ball off to him last year. So that could be a good combo right there. He's got 2. I like his wide receivers. He's got Allen, Diggs, Harrison. I think I mentioned Allen, Samuel, Keon Coleman, who I love in Buffalo, and his running back is good. Gibbs, Jacob Swift. He did wait on tight end too. I'm worried about Cole Kmet, but I do love the Luke Musgrave pick. I think the Green Bay is going to involve him a lot more this year. So I don't think his team's bad at all.
Yeah, definitely a great draft, though, Henry. A lot of great owners in this one. We like to pick our favorite teams as well. So we went through and broke down some of these picks and some interesting picks here and draft builds and whatnot. But let's talk about our favorite team now. Who stands out to you? Who do you think might be the favorite to win this league?
I like Tragedy out of the 3 spot. He went CeeDee Lamb in the first round. Then he backed that up with quarterback taking Dak Prescott. So he's got a lethal duo, a quarterback and wide receiver. The number 1 fantasy wide receiver last year and the quarterback that threw him that ball. And then I think his running backs are very solid. He's like Derrick Henry. He could be very good in Baltimore. Kamara. And then he followed up with a breakout back this year in Zamir White. And his receivers are great. Lamb, Evans, Higgins, Dell. He got Goddard. He also has Spears later on. Zeke, who could have upside in Dallas. Seems really big in the Dallas offense. And I agree. They are a very explosive offense. And I could think they are have another great year this year.
I want to know what his logo is all about. He's got the Bee Gees Tragedy up there. Is that one of their? That's interesting. I don't know. Never seen that one.
Yeah.
Maybe he's a big Bee Gees fan. Who knows? But I agree with you. That was a team that stood out to me, Henry, one I really liked. I'm actually going to go with the Hammer team. I think he picked, is that 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, he picked in the 7 spot. Kind of a tough spot to pick, but I like what he did. I don't I'm not a guy who's going to avoid the running back spot early in drafts, but he did that. I think it still worked. He went
Mhm.
Jefferson, Adams, Samuel. So those are three amazing receivers. Then he got Mixon, Stevenson, Aaron Jones, and Devin Singletary.
Yeah.
I really think two of those guys are going to be good backs that are going to be consistent starters for him. So I think despite waiting on the running back spot, he did really well. It almost seems to me, and I've looked at a lot of these drafts, that if you pick in the middle, you have a better chance to wait and still do well at that position than picking on the end. So maybe just something to keep in mind when your draft position comes out. But I think his build's really good. I love CJ Stroud. I think he's going to have a huge year. I know some people think he could regress a little bit since he'll have a better running game, but I don't think so. I still think he's going to be huge. So he has Stroud as his QB. Tight end's the only spot that has a few concerns, but he has two of my favorite late round picks in Tyler Conklin and Hunter Henry. I love Conklin. I think he could have a really big year with Aaron Rodgers. Then Hunter Henry's another guy that a guy on our channel, Howard Bender, one of our contributors, does a great job. He loves Henry, thinks he's going to be a focal point of that passing game. And he has Freiermuth too. So you got three tight ends that I think he's going to end up being just fine with there. And his backup QB's Kirk Cousins as well, got him late. So I think the Hammer team did a great job. That's my pick for the top team in this draft. But again, just a great job to all these drafters. A really fun one to look at. And we're going to pull up now the draft board, Henry. Not the draft board, but the draft times for the TFC now going forward. You'll see there's a ton of drafts tonight. We're going to get into that a little bit in a second here, Henry. But I'm going to talk about the one we're going to explore this week. We'll do the one on Saturday night at 9 p.m. Central Time. So that'll be the one we focus on. We'll write a draft review for. I will write it down right now so I don't forget. So we're going to do the Saturday, 9 p.m. Central Time. If you want to get in that draft, hear us break it down here on the channel. That's what we're going to do. But Henry, look at tonight. There are three drafts tonight at 6, 8, and 10 Central Time. So that's our time here. And we're doing this because the preseason kicks off tonight. The Hall of Fame game, Chicago Bears, Houston Texans. You can get in one of these drafts right now. Go to rtsports.com, click on that Money League link, sign up for one of these TFC drafts, a chance to win $500,000. Watch the game draft. All these drafts last year, we had similar times filled up during this first preseason game. So people are excited. Football kicks off. You can watch football, draft your team as well. You can see all different draft times on here also throughout the week. We have a bunch on Saturday, Sunday. We have slow ones as well. You name it. We got the times available for you to draft and then TFC. But again, Henry, there are three tonight. So let's talk. We usually talk about ADP and whatnot at this time of the show, but let's talk about the game tonight. Let's do that a little bit. Anything you're looking for in this game tonight? Texans, Bears. I think everybody was excited about Caleb Williams, but he's not going to play. But anything else you're looking for?
There's one receiver I'm looking at. I believe he's going to play. I've seen a couple things of him in training camp playing well, and I think Tyler Scott I like to look at a little bit. I know people have talked about him, and if one of those receivers were to go down the Bears offense, he's probably the next guy that's going to slot in. I see a good connection of Caleb. I know we won't see that tonight, but I would like to look at him a little bit tonight, see what he's all about.
What about Badgett? Are you excited to see him play?
I don't even know on that one.
we actually saw him play, right? He was the guy when we went to Chicago last year, watched a game against Minnesota, and unfortunately Fields went down early and we got to see the Tyler Badgett show. Didn't work out too well. Oh well. One thing I want to look at tonight, though, is the offense in Chicago. So Shane Waldron takes over. He was in Seattle, comes over to Chicago tonight. Again, Caleb Williams is going to play money their starters aren't, but kind of anxious to see what the splits are like. It was really run heavy last year. They didn't really take the reins off of Fields. They didn't throw a ton with him, especially down the field. They were more run heavy. So I'm anxious to see what Waldron does with that offense this year. We should get a little bit of a glimpse tonight. And I'm anxious to see that. Also, the Texans receivers. I know, again, Dell, Diggs, and Collins might not play much, but anxious to see how that shakes out this year. Those are three really good receivers, Henry. That's a lot of targets to spread around. So kind of anxious to see who emerges out of that group. Who do you think will?
I'm going to go with Nico Collins. He was a surefire guy last year. Already has connection with Stroud. I'm going to probably assume him. Tank went down early last year, so he didn't have him a ton. And Diggs is just coming out into the picture. I'm going to go with Nico Collins.
So it should be a lot of fun, though. The Hall of Fame game tonight, Texans, Bears, just great to watch football.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited about it. And again, you can get in a TFC draft with 3 of them going off tonight. Go to rtsports.com, click on that Money League link, get in a TFC draft. Henry, I appreciate you coming on, breaking down the latest TFC draft from this past week and talking everything TFC. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
And thanks to everybody out there for watching the latest edition of the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show and This Week in the TFC. Hope you had a lot of great drafts this past week. And if you're not in one, get in one today at rtsports.com. This has been Jeff Paur with RealTime Fantasy Sports. Have a great day.